live. Well, hello there, Carol Dockum here with Beautiful Faces Going Places Women's Success Network. And I am so excited because we are continuing with our Business Spotlight series. That is one of the many offerings that we offer here at beautifulfacesgoingplaces.com. We're not just a once a month lunch club or a membership organization. We have so many different programs and events that you can actually tap into if you are a small business owner, an entrepreneur, a speaker, trainer, coach, an expert in your industry. We are a visibility, education, and connections platform. So I'm really excited because I love doing these business spotlights. It's an opportunity for me to highlight and showcase someone who I have actually met, have actually worked with, and just think the world of. So my passion is, shining the light on special people. So I'm excited to introduce to you Glenn Rudin. He is known as the Message Master. He's a high energy sales and marketing consultant and coach with more than 25 years of diverse experience with a focus on consumer packaged goods. He specializes in messaging, both verbal and nonverbal, and in branding. He helps his clients create breakthrough messaging so that they are clearly understood in their respective markets. Glenn is also a passionate professional speaker and regularly delivers his keynotes and workshops. Would you do business with you? Sessions at universities, libraries, chambers of commerces, and national conventions. So let's get your message right. Please help me welcome Glenn Rudin with Always Been Creative, the Message Master. Hello, Glenn.
Carol, wow, thank you so much. I love listening to you introduce yourself and speak about all the great things that you do with Beautiful Faces Going Places, because, prior to the pandemic, right, somebody like you was somewhat limited to the, the greater Ohio area, right? A woman or a businessman, woman, in business, or a man in business, they could come to one of those once a month luncheons. But because you're so on top of things and because you're always looking for new opportunities, you, like I, stepped into this Clubhouse app, and all of a sudden you realize that Beautiful Faces Going Places could now present itself literally around the world, which it does. And I know you've got members, membership, interest, and attendees from all over the place. And so, it's no longer just like a local chamber of commerce meeting. You're now running an international organization that connects women, that helps women feel good about what they do, and men too. I don't mean to downplay what you do with men, because I know you've got a lot of really great male members also, but just the work that you do, the work that you put in, if you're not part of Carol's network and you're hearing our voices now today on this broadcast, you do owe it to yourself to get to know her, to get to know her organization, and to tap into all these amazing women and men that she continues to connect with, pour energy into, and make things happen for. It is a real amazing opportunity that, rarely that somebody who runs the organization is so intimately involved, knows all the members, and is in a constant connection mode. So, my hat is off to you because you practice what I preach, which I absolutely love.
Oh my gosh, Glenn, thank you so much. And oh my gosh, you're just amazing. And as Glenn mentioned, he and I met actually on Clubhouse during the pandemic, right? And those of you that know me know I'm passionate about chambers of commerces. As a former chamber exec, I always say, join your local chamber of commerce, right? But I have this vision of connecting entrepreneurs, not just locally and nationally, but globally, leveraging technology. And then we had the opportunity to dive into Clubhouse, an audio only application, right? App, which I thought was so cool. And what I loved about Clubhouse at the time was that it was audio only, your voice. So you could actually just tap into a Clubhouse room and meet incredible like-minded entrepreneurs around the globe, right? Get your message out into the world. And the first time I heard Glenn in a Clubhouse room, I immediately said, I have got to meet this guy. He is just so genuine and all about connectivity and networking and really building relationships. And I know you launched the Business Friends Network on Clubhouse as well. And I was thrilled to be a part of your network and the magic that you brought to the rooms and your inclusivity to making sure that everyone in that room had a voice and that they were heard. And you are just amazing at what you do as the message master. So Glenn, what an honor to have you here. And this is really what building those relationships are about. And I know it may sound a little cliche, you know, you need to develop or grow that know, like, and trust factor, grow your network. Your network is your net worth. But if you just pour into actually getting to know individuals that are in your industry and giving value and truly without, you know, the ask of just, hey, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I serve you? Who can I introduce you to? What are you working on? And taking it from that perspective. But I think one of the things that I've discovered is that in the networking world, I think some individuals think it just happens overnight. And it doesn't. I think, Glenn, you and I have been business friends for over 2 years now since Clubhouse. And so I just want to say my hat's off to you and the work that you do in terms of being the master, the message master. And I also want to say master connector as well.
Yeah, and listen, I appreciate that. And I think that's one of the things that people very often do is they get bored on the journey. They get bored with the message. They get bored because, you know, we all have a tendency to look in our neighbor's yard or in our neighbor's social media feed, right, Carol? And we see someone else has all these followers and we just assume that those are all quality numbers, that they're all real, you know, and it's very similar to looking, you know, across the street or, you know, at your neighbor or whoever lives down the hallway and say, oh, they're driving a big fancy car. They must be making millions of dollars. We never really know what the story is with everybody else. And to me, the key is finding, and this is a term that I picked up from you, I believe, your zone of genius. You use that, you know, over time. I learned that from you, and I love that one. I think it's so important that people find that zone, find that place they're most comfortable, find the place that they can provide the most value, and just stay in that lane. Don't get bored. Don't go running around. Don't go chasing the shiny objects. Stay true to what you do and let people hear that message. Once you get that message right, over and over and over again, because, you know, as human beings, we're constantly barraged with information, with messages, message overload. We've got things going on in our personal lives that occupy our attention. And so, you know, if you are somebody out there and, you know, you're posting on social media or on LinkedIn and you do it once or twice and you say, oh, I didn't get anything back. I must be doing something wrong. You know, we know these numbers. We've heard them over and over again. It could take 7 tries. It could take 8. It could take 12 tries for people to hear you be genuine and come back consistently with the same idea. And until you do that, and now you say, well, listen, I've posted the same thing 20 times, said it slightly differently, and then you can say it's not resonating. I'm not getting results. Then you might have to go back to the drawing board and say, listen, the message just might not be clear. You might not be resonating, or you're not speaking to the right people. But, you know, I find it incredible when people start these journeys, and we've seen this over and over again, and then they immediately get bored or nervous that they're doing the wrong thing, and they just don't give themselves a chance to settle in, to buckle in and stay on the ride.
I love that. That is a very powerful message, Glenn. It is all about consistency, right? And tweaking your message along the way. I know you are all about the message and being consistent and really clarifying the message, and on different platforms. So let's talk about how you help your clients, because I know you're a speaker, you're an author, you're a trainer, and you also do one-on-one consulting with your clients regarding, website overhauls and the messaging, the copywriting. So let's talk a little bit about how you help your clients in that format.
Well, I appreciate that question very much. And for me, it all starts with listening and observing, and really, for me, really, bearing down and trying to understand what it is somebody is trying to accomplish. Because I find very often most of the people that I come in contact with are not 100% sure of really what they're doing. They don't really take, literally a timeout, take themselves aside and say, what am I really trying to say? We have this tendency to want to rush ourselves out there before it's done. Start driving the car when only 3 tires are on, move into the room while the paint is still wet. And those are not, when it comes to your messaging, if you're going out there and you're blasting the wrong thing because you really haven't taken the time to evaluate you haven't taken the time to evaluate the competition, and you haven't taken the time to evaluate really who's out there that might actually need this. And so whether it's in a one-on-one format, that's always, for me, that's always the easiest way to really dig deep and find out what somebody is all about and what they're trying to accomplish. But I can do that in group settings also, and people will attend some of my keynotes or my workshops. And, a few people get to raise their hand and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And in that really short period of time, there's a possibility I might hear you and say, well, that what you're saying is not really clear. The thing is that almost everybody that I come in contact with, I use the number 90%, Carol, almost everybody struggles with some portion of the messaging, the branding, the pitch, the self-identity of who they really are. And some people, it's the full spectrum of all of that. Those are the people that are, a category 1 mess, unfortunately. And then there's other people that have refined some of it, but not all of it. And the problem is that when any one part of that messaging, whether it's your non-verbal branding, whether it's your image, whether it's your personal brand, if any of those things are not in alignment, they're not in sync, then it starts to create confusion and doubt. And, you and I know we've heard this over and over again, a confused mind doesn't buy. And so when you start confusing the very people that you need to resonate with you, they don't really give you a second chance. They just nod their heads politely, and then they start literally looking around to see what's the next message that's coming at me. They don't want to be mean. They don't want to let you down. But chances are you're not going to hear from them in terms of what's the next step in your buying process.
I absolutely love that. You are so right and on point that a confused mind does not buy, right? That just makes me reflect back on when I initially had the concept, that always been creative idea of creating an online chamber of commerce to support women in business and entrepreneurs, leveraging technology. I had in my Beautiful Faces Going Places.com was a success boutique. And I had people asking me, well, what does that mean? So I knew at that point that I was not clear. There was no clarity there, and it was confusing people. In my mind, I thought it was cute and clever and loved the idea of having a success boutique, with different courses and webinars and workshops. That was the boutique. So I totally understand and can relate to that, because I was in those shoes, if you will.
Right. So, what ends up happening very often, it's a great point. It's one that I see all the time. we have a tendency, because we are our own insiders. And so very often we will create something that we get about ourselves from our history, a name, an idea, a concept, but we get it. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking, if I put this out there, like you said, because it's cute and it's clever, or it's a little bit of a riddle and somebody has to think about it. And that's the absolute wrong thing that people do. You know, I had a client that I worked with that I met on Clubhouse probably about a year and a half ago. And she was in the business of helping entrepreneurs and small businesses get their books and their businesses set up, right? She would help them either create incorporations or LLCs. So that kind of work, really, really important work for somebody who's really ready to take that next step. And she was just starting out. She was calling her company something to the effect of the butterfly effect. That's how she introduced it to me, the butterfly effect. And I said, look, you know, can you explain what that means to me? What is the butterfly effect? What does that have to do with organizing businesses, getting them set up? And she said, well, in my mind, butterflies go through this metamorphosis and they change, right? They go from caterpillars to butterflies. And so these are, you know, the analogy is these people are going through a change. They're changing into, you know, real companies and real LLCs. And I said, look, I have to stop you. I honestly cannot let you go out into the world and use that as your name in the world. Now, if you've already got, if you're listening and you already have something like that set up, and you've already got, you know, an EIN number with the federal government or your local state government, and that's how you pay your taxes and have your relationship with Uncle Sam, that's great. That's great. But that is not your business name. Your business name has got to be something, in my judgment and the way I work with clients, that at least leads us down the path of what you do. I'm happy to say she did take my advice, and she changed her company name to, you know, the startup machine, something like that, that at least people now got it. You work with startups, you get them rolling along. I don't remember exactly what the name was, but she was smart enough to take the advice and say, you know what, if you're telling me this, maybe I better listen and not do that. What ends up happening a lot of times, though, is people's egos get in the way and they resent that advice and they go forward with it anyway. And then 6 months, a year down the road, after they spent all this time banging their heads against the wall and trying to figure out, why am I not getting engagement? Very often they'll come back to the same thing. Maybe he was right. Maybe the name should be a little more along the lines of common sense. Now, I'm not saying you can always do that, but, you know, it took me a long time to come up with always been creative and had the acronym ABC that worked within that. It told people that I've always been a creative guy. So if you're looking for someone who can help you with creativity, that would work for me. Of course, you know, at the time, 15 years ago, when I did that, had to go out and make sure that I had a .com URL that would work with. And it did. And it all made sense. And over time, I've gotten loads of compliments on that name. And even if I didn't get a compliment, people at least understood the space that I operated in terms of creativity. So you have to really, really think long and hard about how difficult or how easy you want to make the journey for somebody from listening to you to turning into a lead. And that's actually the name of the seminar, the masterclass that I'm doing next week, is called Pitch Like a Pro, Turn Your Listeners into Leads, right? Because everyone is going to hear something that you say. The question is, will they keep listening and turn into a lead, or will they stop listening, stop paying attention, and you lose all contact? So that's what that masterclass next week is all about.
I'm really excited that you mentioned your masterclass, because I absolutely love it. Pitch Like a Pro, Turn Listeners into Leads. And that's coming up here on September the 14th. It is a Zoom masterclass on Zoom. So I would love to tell all our viewers, what's that?
That's going to be at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the
Awesome.
14th. There's a link on my website that you can go to that'll take you to a landing page. The master class is $29.99. There are still seats available. It is 8 steps to learning to pitch like a pro. And if you're struggling with your pitch, if you're struggling with your messaging, I know you're going to get great value out of that 75-minute masterclass, which will introduce you to a lot of the concepts that I work with my private clients.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Glenn. I am looking forward to attending your master class, Pitch Like a Pro. And so check out and register at alwaysbeencreative.com. And we hope to see you there on September the 14th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Glenn, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure spending time with you. Thank you for sharing your brilliance with Beautiful Faces Going Places Women's Success Network.
Carol, I can't thank you enough for anybody out there that doesn't understand the value of networking, the relationship that Carol and I have been able to forge with one another by just hearing each other on a voice-only app, taking that off of the app to one-on-one Zoom calls, and now building a real rock-solid business friendship is amazing. And the things that people like us can do for one another go so far beyond just having that name in your Rolodex. So this is a testament to networking and how well it works. Carol, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate you and everything you do with Beautiful Faces Going Places. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenn. It's been an honor, a real treat having you here. All right, take care. And we'll see you at Pitch Like a Pro. Take care.